would be the 4th, and let's double check because you have the conference in September.
Oh, that's at the end of the month.
Oh, yeah, so it'd be the 18th. It works okay. So September would be the 4th and 18th. October would be the 2nd and the 16th.
And then November and December can stay as they stand. Because we typically just do one meeting a month in those 2 months anyway.
So November would be the 13th.
And the 11th.
December would be the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What did you say for September?
September is the 4th and 18th.
Okay.
I got a question. Why are we having a work session again if we just said it wasn't productive?
Michelle, this is a new year. So let's work together.
So we're gonna still do work sessions and
Just let me
regular
finish
meetings?
what
I just need to.
You asked the question, you're not letting me
Can
respond.
I finish the question? Can I finish the
Go
question?
ahead.
So we're going to do this again, work and regular, is what I'm hearing everybody here at this table say. Okay.
Yes, but again, it's a new year and we're working toward a new structure. So if we can put a motion on the floor, please.
So Dr. Rock, just an FYI, the 13th of November, that's Capitol Conference for whoever's gonna be attending that. That's the last day of that.
They don't have it on Wednesdays
They don't have
anymore.
it on
Yeah, it's
Wednesdays.
Sunday
It
to
ends on
Tuesday.
It's Sunday to
Sunday
Tuesday.
to Tuesday.
We checked.
We talked about that.
What was the June date, the first June date?
26th,
It'll be the 5th and
the
19th.
20,
Because in June, we want to
26th.
have our meeting as close to the end of the month.
So we moved it, right, got it.
So we just have one in June, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
we're good.
What about May? What do we have for May?
May would be
First one.
the 1st and the 15th.
Okay.
Now, I want to be clear, the board is stating, you're putting the work sessions on the calendar.
Yes.
If the board states we don't need one for that month, then you'll cancel it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Okay.
So how you gonna know if you need a work session?
Hey, no.
If you gonna
We
just
will be
cancel
planning it as a board. We will work together as a board to plan our content for our work sessions.
So when are you planning it? Is it gonna be planned at the previous regular meeting?
I will send out an email following this meeting so we can put topics on the calendar, on our agenda for our first work session. Yes.
Which won't be until March 6th.
No, February
February
13th.
13th.
Work session.
Well, then what's the regular meeting in February?
February,
The regular meeting, you got 20.
It'll be the 20th, the next
What is the
week.
20th? I'm sorry.
The regular meeting be the 20th.
yes.
Got it.
Yes, that's for the board.
I'm sorry, that was one
that's
that I
okay.
was missing.
Nope, that's okay, because we did skip February. Can
So
we
you
put a
mean-
motion on the floor
So I got
so
a
that,
question.
so that we can set our meetings for the first and
You have a
third
question? What'd
Wednesday?
you say?
So the 13th and the 20th?
Michelle, it won't be the first time we've had a meeting back to back.
I'm asking a question, Ms.
And
Mitchell.
I'm answering it.
Everybody is asking questions, but you seem to be giving me a hard time today. I'm just confused. Dr. Rock, I just need to hear what you said, because I didn't hear you. What did you say for February?
February would be a work session on the 13th and a regular session on the 20th.
Thank you.
I think I have them all. Do you want me to list them out again so we can write them down or fill them out on the, and then you can make the motion?
You can, I wrote them down.
Oh, okay, you got them. You want me to just review them real fast?
Sure, go ahead, please.
January 23rd, February 13th will be a work session, February 20th, regular session, March 6th, work session, March 20th, regular, April 3rd, work session, April 17th, regular, May 1st, work session, May 15th, regular, June is one meeting, and it'll be a regular meeting on the 26th, July is one meeting, and it'll be on July 17th, August is work session on the 7th, regular meeting on the 21st. September, work session on the 4th, regular meeting on the 18th. October, work session on the 2nd, regular meeting on the 16th. November, only one meeting, and it's on the 13th. And December, only one meeting, it's on the 11th.
Yes, sir. Meeting start at 6:30. We will be here at the high school. Can we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board
have a second?
A second. Discussion.
Dr. Rock, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Sure.
I
Oh,
think
I-
she
oh, I
said
didn't hear it,
sure.
I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
First
Whatever,
vote.
Dr. Rock, go ahead.
Was it a yes or no?
I'm going with whatever they say.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mrs. Elba.
It's quite all right. Whatever y'all say.
Mrs. Gator,
There's no not to attend.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. We can move to item number 7. These are committee assignments and our annual joining of OSBA and NSBA. On the agenda, you see where we've listed our committees as a whole: Budget and Finance and Policy, Student Families and Faculty in Action. Our liaisons, we always list our Ohio Black Caucus Program and the Black Caucus Scholarship, but I don't think we're having that scholarship dinner anymore, do we? Remember, Elba?
What?
Are we still doing the scholarship, the luncheon? I think they moved it to a luncheon last year. Are they still doing that at OSBA for Black Caucus? Then we have our legislative liaison, and then as we were looking at our board policy 0151 that speaks to the organizational meeting, we recognize that we have the opportunity now to go on and do our appointees for our delegates for the OSBA annual conference. So that would be the delegate and the alternate. So last year, Member Gator served as our delegate, and I think Vice President Freeman was the alternate. Are you willing to continue?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and is there anyone that would be interested in the alternate, or Vice President, would you? Nope.
Don't wanna do it.
So we would need an alternate for that? Understood. Member Gator? I'm sorry, Member Elba? Would you be interested in being the alternate?
Not at all.
I guess the alternate would be me.
Are you gonna do it?
Oh, no, go, if you want to, go right ahead.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am. So our alternates would be, our alternate would be Member Mumin, and our delegate would be Member Gator. And then Member Gator, you'll still serve as our legislative liaison, keeping us updated. All righty. Item 1.8 is the waiver of the reading of our minutes. And we do this in accordance with section 3313.26 of the ORC, and it allows us to waive the reading of the minutes of the preceding meetings as long as all of our requirements have been met in that code.
President Mitchell, would the board like to get a vote on 1.7? Because I know
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
delegate and
Yes, we did go
alternate
by that.
usually ask me for the vote.
Forgive me, moving too fast, sorry about that. If I can have a motion on the floor, please, to approve what we stated in item 1.7, the committee assignments and our obligation to join OSBA and NSBA.
Madam Chair, I make a motion for the commitment, committee assignments and join OSBA and NSBA for the liaisons for OSBA and legislative liaison. Mimi Gator, and alternate would be Barbara Newman.
I second that.
Thank you. Dr. Rock, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Elba? Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Miss Mitchell?
Yes. Next on our agenda is 1.8, the waiver of our reading of our minutes. And if we can have a motion on the floor so that we can begin that discussion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to waiver of the reading of the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion on this topic, board? If not, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Which meeting is this?
All of them. Oh, yeah.
All of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, what this
Oh, okay.
does
I
is,
just want to make sure that I wasn't voting for December the 10th when I wasn't here. So if it's all of them, yes.
Oh, no,
This
ma'am,
is for,
It's the calendar year
this-
2008.
oh,
for
19.
governments, some smaller governments, they actually read their minutes at the board meeting. It's for smaller governments, like a village or something real small.
Okay.
So that's what this is. This waives it so we don't have to read the minutes. We just, review them and get them approved.
which is, it's what we do right now.
Lord, give me stress.
So you said yes, Mrs. Moomin?
Ms. Newman, they
Are
asked
you
for your vote.
I said yes.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Mrs. Elba?
Yes.
I know, I'm just asking.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes. Next on the agenda is item 1.9, our board service fund. If I can have a motion on the floor so that we can open discussion on this topic.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept item 1.9 board service fund.
A second?
So Dr. Rock, he's prepared a report for us so that he can keep us honest on where we've been with our conferences over the past 2 years, and he produced a report for both the 2017 year and the 2018 year. We not only want to take a look at, thank you, doing our normal approval, but we want to make things easier for the board, and we thought it might be easier if we did like a blanket approval, where we would approve the conferences listed below as our standard conferences, and that would be CUBE, NAPC, Annual Conference, the OSBA, BLI, which is our Board Leadership Institute, OSBA Capital Conference, and the Council of Great City Schools, because remember, Elba, we know you went to those two, and you know that they were good conferences, so we wanted to just do a blanket approval, because it will be easier for planning purposes and for us to decide the conferences that we wanted to attend over this year. So that's the other portion of the discussion. Are you, as a board, willing to do the blanket approvals for these conferences that we've got noted?
Personally, I don't think that's a good idea, because there's conferences come up every year from different organizations, and you can't stop a board member from going to A and it is not on the list. A board member has a right to go to any conference that's given, as long as it's board related. So to say you're having just these that are board voted, if something comes up, prime example, the ESC has board conferences all the time.
You shouldn't have to talk over that. Okay.
So my point is, can't limit board members on the topic of a workshop that they can attend, because any conference can come up, and every organization does a different conference every year, and it's called something different. Just like you have ESC now is starting to partner with OSBA, and ESC is going to conference, ESC is doing board member conferences. That's not listed. So to put a board member in a box and say, you can only do this, that's not fair to the board. So I don't agree with this, but it sounds like you guys have already made your minds up, because it's already on the agenda.
No,
So-
it's just here for discussion.
So I'm just saying, you can't put board members in a box and say this is all you can do, because as a board member, you have the right to do PD anywhere you desire.
And I agree with you. What we're trying to do is not limit, we're just trying to make some of the conferences that we know we go to all the time easy, so we don't have to come back and say, because, we've been doing it where we, for the most part, board so-and-so would like to attend this conference, and we vote to say yes or no, we're going. We just wanted to do a blanket approval over the standard ones that we go to. At no time are we saying a board member cannot go. Our policy does not allow us to do that, and the Ohio Revised Codes do not allow us to do that. We simply just want to make it easier for the conferences that we attend already. If you want to add ESC to that, perhaps we can amend this and add the ESC conferences to that as well.
I'm just saying, you just stated that you want to do this so the board can vote on conferences that are normally attended. But you cannot vote on conferences for a board member to attend.
Member Gator.
Thank you. So I hear what Member Elder is saying. I feel that by not putting some kind of a cap somewhere, some kind of stipulations to it, you run into a board member spending $8,000 almost on professional development. I think there has to be some kind of a limit. So this might not be something we need to dive into for the organizational meeting. That this is probably something we want to discuss at a work session as far as attending workshops, what's appropriate and what's not. You can't stop a board member from going, but there's still a financial responsibility. And we have to be mindful of that. You know, I'm not gonna put it, you know, everybody's seen this, hopefully, and you see how much money everyone has spent. We've got 2 board members that spent twice as much as other individuals. So I think that this is something we discuss at a work session. So does it matter if we have these listed on here? And can we come back and revisit it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these are not set in stone. It's, when you do a blanket, it's very similar to the blanket authorizations that Dr. Rock does. It's just something that says, these conferences right here, they're approved. We just have to let Dr. Rock know we are or are not attending, and then he and his team can get the registrations in place and our flight schedule. Yes, ma'am.
I understand that, we all need professional development. I understand that. But our goal right now is funding for the development of our district. For one board member or 2 board members, every month or every other month, they go into some type of workshop. My point to them is, pick the workshop that you think that you're gonna really gain some knowledge from, and go to that one. Why go to all these different workshops? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not putting limitation on anybody. I'm just asking for professional judgment. Judge what you do, because your outcome is taken away from our children, and I don't like that.
I agree.
Madam Chair, I'd like to speak on that.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Part of this board backing me for the National School Board Association, have a mandatory requirement to attend 3 or 4 of
Okay.
those things. So,
I don't have any problem with that.
I didn't go outside the box of any of them. I mean, but I have to be at anything that says National School Board Association. So if those 3, I gotta be at every single one.
And that's not even on here.
It should be.
NSBA is not on here.
Oh, you know what? You're right. It was missed. I apologize.
We got Q, but you know, they don't have that.
What this concept does, though, too, is it helps you start the communications amongst the board, so you know who's going to where. So now you're agreeing on, these are the standard ones. And the second thing that it does, too, is it helps you with your reimbursable expenses. Because if a board member goes to something that's not approved or not agreed upon, they certainly can go, but then they would have to pay for that themselves, and now I would be in reimbursing you, and it'd be a lot higher.
Correct.
Now, when it's already approved on these, I know that I could go directly pay for this with district funds, and now it's not counted as a reimbursable.
Correct.
And the reimbursable is just merely your mileage and travel expenses, or
Exactly.
if there's a meal or something like de minimis
Correct.
amounts. And then that becomes your reimbursables, and that's where we've done a great job. We've been below the $20,000 limit. That's what the law is for.
Correct.
Is on those reimbursables. So this helps with 2 ways. It helps you communicate amongst yourself as board members on what you agree, and this starts the conversation. And then number 2, it helps with helping us in the treasurer's office on what's a reimbursable and what isn't.
Absolutely. So we will need to pull that, the initial motion back, because we do need to add NSBA annual conference in there. I do apologize because we missed that.
Well, you need to add DSC.
I have one final question. So with this being blanket, are we saying that one board member could go to all 5 of these conferences? And, because to me, that's what it sounds like it's saying.
To be honest, we've already had that happen. One board member has gone.
And I think that's excessive. So,
I do not disagree with you.
so guess my personal opinion is we discuss how this should, we discuss what conferences everybody wants to go to at maybe our first work session.
Right.
I'm a little uncomfortable with listing all 5 of these and saying, you can go to any of these, because like I said, I think it tends to be abused.
Yeah, I would agree. So if I may, just for a
Yes,
little
ma'am.
bit bored, I know we talked about the work sessions. One of the thoughts that I had, we talked about in previous retreats and what have you, how do we bring what we're learning at the conferences to life in the district? We've done some of it, we've done a good job with some of it, but not all of it. And it was my hope that for the first work session, we could talk through that very topic, Member Gator, talk about how to ensure that we're getting the best from the conferences that we attend. If we are in all attendance at all the conferences, how do we then plan to make the most out of all 5 of us being at conferences? So it is a discussion that I would love for us to take to our first work session and then use that session to better define other, professional training, the professional development sessions that we could look to attend. We know this list isn't the end-all, but it was a start. So I guess my question is, as a board, do you want to remove the blanket, even though it does provide a sense of ease for Dr. Rock and his office as they do begin our planning? And then we have a more robust discussion on this topic at our first work session in February.
Me personally, I would rather see it removed. That's just my personal opinion. And we have the discussion in February.
Other thoughts?
I think we could have it removed, provided that in our first work session, that we identify all of the workshop, all of the conference, and then determine who wants to go. Because to me, it doesn't make any sense for all 5 of us to go to the same conference. That doesn't make any sense to me. When we have a work session, bring the information back.
Some of the information isn't there, though, yet.
Huh?
Some of it's not out yet, though.
Some of it's not out.
Mm-mm.
Well, I'm talking about for this year.
Some of it isn't
Some of
published
the
yet.
Okay, but even at that work session, you can say, Q conference is this day. How many of us want to go? If it's more than 3 of us, I don't think it should be more than 3 of us going to the same conference. I just don't.
Well, I respect that. So, board, so it sounds like, Michelle, what are your thoughts? Are we removing the blanket there?
Whatever y'all wanna do,
I'm asking because you're part of the board.
whatever y'all wanna do.
So we have 2 that would like to remove the blanket. Vice President Freeman, what are your thoughts?
You can remove it.
Okay.
I just
So
don't know.
if we can amend that motion to remove the blanket
Mhm.
and just move back to our normal board service fund, and then we will pick this up in a work session in February.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
A new
Madam
motion,
Chair,
please.
I would like to amend the previous motion, and I would like to just state, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 1.9, which strictly says to approve the service fund for board members in accordance to ORC 3315.5 for expenses accrued at standard conferences at $20,000 or at a maximum of $4,000 per board member for reimbursed for expenses.
I second that.
2019.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes. Next on the agenda is item 1.0, board travel, non-standard conferences. And we need a motion on the floor to discuss and vote for travel to non-standard conferences, requiring board approval prior to registration and reservations. So I guess my question for this one, since we've removed the blanket, is this one a moot point right now, and should it be removed from the agenda?
Yes, it's not applicable.
Okay.
2, you can't deny a board member to attend, whether it's a standard or non-standard. So it is mute, even though it's gonna be removed, but You just stated that your revised code and everything else says you cannot say, Miss So-and-so, you can't go to ESC, or Miss So-and-so, you can't go here. You can't tell them that, so.
But it's all board discretion and communication amongst yourselves.
Correct.
In 15 years in the business, I've worked with a lot of board members, and one of the ones that traveled a lot, they would put it on the board agenda, not to vote no for someone, but they wanted to know who was going where.
Correct.
And then the treasurer's office was instructed not to book anything until it hit the agenda, so and it was in planning, which is where the direction you're going with this right now anyways.
Absolutely, yes, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. Thank you,
Yes.
Dr. Rock. So, it will be removed. It will be a more robust discussion on overall conference and professional development at our first work session. And with that, we're going to move into item 2, the approval of all of our standard authorizations for both the superintendent and treasurer. If I can have a motion on the floor for item 2.1, investment authority, given the treasurer authorization to direct invest monies surplus to the immediate needs of the school district in a manner authorized by law, which will accrue the greatest fiscal benefits to the school district, providing a monthly report of investments and earnings thereof to provide compliance with the Ohio Revised Code on accounting and subject investments, and to provide a prorated apportionment of earnings.
There is one option for the board to do a consent agenda or pull out separate items if you wanted.
So I would much rather do that. That wasn't changed, so we're gonna pull, I'm sorry, Dr. Jones.
I'm sorry, yeah, I was saying, these are all standard,
Yeah.
these are all standard that we went back over the last 8 years and they all been the same
Okay.
on every agenda.
So I will pull that motion from the floor, and I will ask someone to make a motion to approve by consent agenda items 2.1 through 2.16, given the approval of our standard authorizations for our superintendent and treasurer.
Madam Chair, I make a motion approval of standard authorization for superintendent and treasurer, looking for items 2.1 through 2.16.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion?
Is this discussion time?
Yes,
Okay. So on 2.15 and 2.14, it needs to also state, staff should come before the board at the next scheduled meeting. If you're allowing the treasurer and superintendent to hire in between meetings, it still has to come to the board for a vote.
Subsequently.
That's right. You can't just say you're hired and you never hit the board, especially when your sentence in here says must be board approval before you can be paid.
That's the subsequent part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to, in order for them to be paid, it has
Oh,
to
I
hit
know that.
Yeah,
a board
sub-
agenda.
Right, I'm
So
sorry.
it's saying it in different
It's
words.
there. It says subject to a subsequent vote. So that means bringing it before the board.
Yeah, but it doesn't always happen, so I just wanted to say it.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other discussion? Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Elba? Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, sir. Our final item on this evening's agenda is the treasurer's report and financial recommendations. I am asking for a motion on item 3.1, approving the tax budget for school year 2018 through 2019.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 3.1, tax budget for the school year 2018-19.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Board, is there any discussion on this topic?
This is a standard report that we file with the county auditor. This is the very beginning of our budget process. This budget is for next school year, meaning fiscal year ending 2020. We're in a projection year now. We're not even complete with this year. So this is the step one. And then what happens is, the tax budget is put into our permanent appropriations which we eventually approve in September. So this is step one to that. The biggest part of this is listing all of our levies, and the reason that it takes long, I have to present it right at the meeting, is because the data comes from the county auditor very late in December. This time it came in on the 28th, so before I could start to do the calculations. And to make it even worse, their system was down, so instead of getting a 14-page report, we got 2 pages, and I had to go get another report in hand, calculate a lot of things. So anyway, so the first page shows all of our levies, and we all want to always request the maximum amount on all those levies. So this page is requested at 100% collection, which will never happen, although our collection rate has moved up to 91%, which is phenomenal for us, and we've talked through those issues. And then the next section is where we show the multiple funds, and we show what's available to spend, and we want to show the county auditor that we will be spending the money, so then it justifies collecting the taxes. And that's the bottom line of the tax budget, other than one other sheet that shows just the bond fund on the calendar year basis. And it's required every year to be adopted by January 20th.
Board, are there any questions for Dr. Rock? Hearing none, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Mrs. Elba?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes. Motion passed 5-0. This brings us to our announcements. Mr. Jolly, do we have any announcements for the district?
Yes, I do have some announcements. I do want to share with the board, I did pass the board some information that the city of Warrensville have approached the board about a project that they're looking at. The city of Warrensville, South University has recently closed, and the city of Warrensville is investigating the possibility of buying the property. They did approach and called me. I did share with the board about possibly a joint venture in which our Board of Education would go into that site. So what the next steps would be that the mayor would like to come to our January 23rd meeting to talk to the board about this possibility. From that meeting, if the board approves, we would and it gives us the authority, we would begin conversations with the city about that exciting opportunity. What we see in this opportunity is that in our building plan, we did allocate over $1.2 million for the Board of Education to be here at the high school. That money could be diverted, that we have for the board, diverted to back into our project. So it's an exciting opportunity for the board. The mayor had conversations with us, but he wants to formally come and present this opportunity to the board. We do not know how the numbers would look. We do not know what savings would be, but we want the board to hear the opportunity, and then we would like opportunities to explore it in more detail to see if it's a good fit for us.
That would move the funds more into the classroom and directly to the scholars instead of something that was more administrative purchase.
Administrative. And the thoughts, Dr. Rock can elaborate a little more, but the conversations with the city was that the board would have their own separate entrance, separate floor. It would be a totally separate operating entity, but just sharing the building, which would be cost savings.
And it's a rental structure,
Right.
at least from the beginning information that I found out.
Right.
So we would be a tenant at the building, so we wouldn't be buying the building, which would
Right.
be a lot
Which is-
more
Yeah,
expensive.
we'd be leasing
Yeah.
from them.
It's a significant savings to do something
Oh,
like
it'd
that.
probably be, we'll have to see the numbers, but I'm anticipating it's gonna be less than all of the repairs that we have to put into our building for HVAC, boilers, and the utilities, all of that. Maintenance, salting, now you become a tenant, and you just pay the rental,
Right,
and if something's broke, you complain to the tenant.
right, they have to fix it.
So that
To the
leads,
landlord, I'm sorry.
right, so that leads to the next item that I would like the board to have some discussions on at a work session, is the future use of our current elementary buildings. This time will go real fast. We'll be in 2020 real quick, and we'll be moving into the new building. And we're holding on to 3 buildings. We'll have Eastwood, Westwood, and John Dewey, which we have to make decisions on. We learned a lot from the Randallwood situation where we just pretty much mothballed it. It got out of control. We could not rehabilitate it when we needed it. So we need to, my request is that the board at a work session begin those conversations on what happens to those 3 buildings in collaboration with the city, because all 3 of them do sit inside of Warrensville Heights, to see what possibilities exist. I would recommend that we do keep one of the buildings for future growth. And those conversations also, I think that I would like the board to have in the next few months, because as this time goes fast, we do have money allocated in our building plan to demolish those buildings. So part of our first phase, the money was put in place to demolish the building. So we do have the money, but we do have, the board does have the authority to do different things with the buildings. And once they're demolished, the board can sell the properties. So those are just exploring those options. We can have legal counsel or so forth here so that we can begin those discussions. Ideally, we need to go into the community and hear from the residents, the council people here, 2 of the council people here. The schools do sit inside of both of their, John Dewey sits inside of Mr. Howard's ward, and Eastwood inside of Constable Mitchell's ward, to begin those conversations. I know this is real big picture. This is, a lot of moving parts at the same time, but this is the time to have a discussion because the fall of 2020 will be here, and I would we didn't do a good job with the Randallwood situation when it closed. We want to be ahead of that to make sure that we don't hold properties that then lower the value of the homes in the community because of the upkeep and so forth. So that is the next item that I wanted to bring to the board so that we can begin those discussions about that. Also, Randallwood, just announcing to the community, Randallwood is almost half down at this point. The old Pie C cafeteria is all gone. So each day I go over there, I've been going over there since the 2nd, just for about an hour and just watch the whole process and how it goes. So it should be, the goal is for the library in Randallwood to be down by the end of February, but if the weather stays good, they will have it down before then. And then the next steps with that is that they will take out the current foundation, and then they will replace it with a new foundation. Okay. So we anticipate a groundbreaking in the beginning of April, mid-April, beginning of April. So if the weather's right, everything goes in place, we'll have a ribbon cutting then, and then this summer you'll start to see pillars and things come up. Also, Alumni Night is on January 25th, so I do want to make that announcement to the community about Alumni Night. We have a lot of things going on. We do have to present. Next thing, we do have to present our plan or design to the Warrensville Heights Planning Committee. That will be the first planning meeting in February. So we will be there. Our architects will be there, and I want to inform the board that we'll be at that meeting to go over our plan for Randallwood. So other than that, school started on yesterday, or what's today, Wednesday, so it started on Tuesday. We worked most of the break, but on Tuesday, again, I encourage anybody to come see our schools and see the great work that's going on, and you will definitely see students engaged learning on a daily basis. And we're working through any issues and circumstances that occur, but our kids are engaged. But those are the major items. Also, for the second meeting, we will need an executive session for the second meeting in reference to the Beechwood case. There are some events and circumstances that the board needs to be updated on. And that concludes the announcements.
Board members, do you guys have any announcements from a board perspective?
I'm actually attending the OSBA President's installation and reception the gentleman that was recently elected as the president is on our region, so we will be in attendance. I will be in attendance.
When is that?
Saturday. And no, I'm not being paid, I'm not asking for mileage, I'm just attending.
Safe travels.
No need to travel.
I'm sorry, I do have one announcement. This week, we lost a pillar of the community, a longtime booster, Mr. John Fuller. Was an athletic booster for, I would say, over 30 years. Worked all the way till pretty much till he got sick. His funeral is Saturday at Affinity. So it's at 10 a.m. on Saturday. The wake is at 9:30. It's a viewing at Prince Funeral Home on Broadway from 3 to 7 on Friday. Mr. Fuller was a great asset to our community. I grew up with his children. He was here. His kids graduated 25 years ago, and he still came to every game. Did the chains, worked in the all the way up until this year. Worked in the food place, and it's a big loss for us. So, taught driver's education. He did all that. So it's a big loss for our community to lose Mr. Fuller. So we will be at the funeral. We will have a resolution for the board at the funeral.
Madam Chair, I have one quick announcement.
Thank you.
So, the board remembers, and hopefully you guys get the emails from OSBA giving us the legislative updates. But if you guys recall, we did a resolution for House Bill 343. So House Bill 343 would have placed new restrictions and requirements for school districts wishing to challenge property valuations. Fortunately, House Bill 343 did not get approved, and OSBA is thanking all of the boards for the work that they did to get the word out that we oppose this legislation. The other ones that did not pass was House Bill 342, which actually became Senate Bill 21. That one had to do with the election poll workers and put some more restrictions on them, and that one did not pass as well. So again, I just want to thank the board for their support with the resolutions that we provided. We definitely did our part to make sure that the legislation didn't go through. And that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to share that we have two of our board members who will be traveling in the next couple of weeks. The NSBA Advocacy Institute is in Washington, D.C., January 27th through the 29th. And then the Equity Symposium is also in D.C. on Saturday, January 26th. So looking forward to hearing. I know, Michelle, you always bring great information back from those, and I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes and safe travel to both. Dr. Rock, is there any correspondence?
No.
Well, with that, board, if we can have a motion to end our organizational meeting?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting January the 9th, 2019.
Second. Thank you. Dr. Rock, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Elba?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, meeting adjourned.
Oh,